Hello, Kepler families, and welcome to another live. I am here today to talk home economics. Home economics with Kelsie Smathers. Welcome, Kelsie. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're actually in the same town, the very same town, and it might even look like we're in the same building with a brick background, but we're doing this remotely, just like the other ones. Well, glad to have you here. Let's talk about your class and let's talk about home economics. But before we do all of that, let's get to know Kelsie. Kelsie, who are you? What do you do? You're teaching one class for Kepler, so there's more to it than just that, surely.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks so much for having me. I am a wife and a mom. I have 3 little kids. Almost 5, almost 3, almost 1. So my life right now is very much in the home. That's my center. So this class is very personal to me. It's also something that I've always been interested in. I started my teaching career at the University of Idaho. So here in Moscow, we have the University of Idaho. And I got my undergrad in family and consumer sciences. And whenever people hear family and consumer sciences, they get a big question mark on their face and they go, what is that? And so I have to say, it used to be home ec, and now it's family and consumer sciences. So it's an expansion of what we might think of as the traditional home ec subjects. So we have the apparel and textile design, we have the food and nutrition, we have family life, we have early childhood education, all of those home skills and a little bit beyond. So I did my undergrad in that, and then I went back for my master's, and then I started teaching. And some of the courses that I taught were personal and family finance. I really enjoy the education piece of personal finance. And I do a housing course, Housing America's Families, where we look at the history of housing and construction and some interior decoration. Super fun. Consumer economics, again, looking at economics of a consumer versus a business. And then I developed a course for the university called Adulting, Life, Love, and Money.
Okay.
Yes. It is such a fun course. And so I did that for a couple years. And then this year, life happened and Kepler came on my radar as a really great option, something that I can do from home. And looking through all the courses and talking to Mr. Postma, I was like, well, what can I teach? What am I interested in? What am I passionate about? And the life skills, the home ec part came about. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm really excited about it.
I love that adulting is one of the, that just seems like that class would be a meme factory right there.
Oh, I mean, it is.
It's funny to think about. I mean, I think it's easy to make fun of younger people, and then they make fun of themselves using that expression, adulting. And I just can't adult right now. But when I see those things, I feel so much sympathy. I'm 42 years old, and yet adulting can be can be a challenge.
Yes, and part of it is just a lot of students coming in and not having some of the basic skills taught to them in school, and then not getting it from home, whether or not parents were too busy or didn't know how, or just thought that the student was going to naturally absorb these skills,
Right.
or the student was just didn't care when they were at home, and then suddenly they're thrown into the world on their own, and they don't know how to sort their own laundry. They
Right.
don't know how to do their laundry. They don't know how to pay a bill. They don't know what to look for in a rental lease. So it's a combination of things, and it's sad that we kind of need these skills, because the schools and the family life isn't always giving it. But and there's a lot more that we add to it that some parents might not even think that their child needs to know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I noticed, you talk about the home, and there's a very high flown name for your field of study, but you named your class home economics. So life skill, home ec, and beyond. And I think it's cool to have sort of this throwback. I'm old enough to remember there being a home economics class.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's something that's kind of, it is sort of a throwback, but I think that kind of casts it in a different light. Maybe talk
For
about
sure.
that a lot, because you made that choice on purpose.
Yeah. So part of that for me was the audience that I expected to be speaking to. Hi, Mrs. Fukushon. I was expecting to be speaking to an audience in Kepler, who might be a little bit more connected to the simplicity of the home economics.
Hmm.
And I didn't want it to be confused as a lofty science of some kind, because it is a science. I mean, there's a science to everything we do in home ec, but it's not maybe as lofty and intellectual as we might try to make it. So I wanted to keep the life skills part of it, because that's a little catchy. It's a little hook, life
Yeah.
skills. And it's stuff that everybody will use. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you're doing in life. There are these specific soft skills that you will use. So I wanted to keep the life skills in the title, and I wanted to add in the home ec, because many of the topics that I'm teaching are specifically done in the home. They are performed in the home. But then I said, and beyond, because it's more than just that.
Yeah. And ultimately, a lot of what you talk about is like the importance of the home in today's society. So I
Mhm.
want to build out to that. But, if we talk about home economics, there's the possibility that students look at that and say, well, okay, so it's a baking and laundry class. Life skills, well, I'm going to learn how to pay bills and do some accounting. So we're talking about it all. We're talking about the household. And so I love how you've titled it, but I definitely like the nod to ancient tradition in
Yeah.
home economics. So in your course description, you talk about crafting resumes, budgets, plan balanced meals, tackle laundry stains, and much, much more in this fast-paced, hands-on course. Fabulous. And then you talk about soft skills, and you've already used the phrase. What are the soft skills?
Yeah. So when we think about skills in the adult life, skills past high school, the skills college and beyond, whether you're in school or not, we kind of think about the skills that are needed in the workplace, which might be some of the hard skills, the skills that will get you that job to earn the income. And we're not always thinking about the soft skills that are kind of behind the scenes. And some of those are going to be communication, and some are just going to be, again, the life skills, being able to feed yourself, being able to create a balanced meal to sustain your body, being able to clean your bathroom and keep a sanitary space. So when I say soft skills, those are some of the things that I'm talking about, as opposed to the skills to get the job, as most people might think of it.
Right. And then you talk a good bit in this class about the importance of the home in today's society. So let's do that. Let's talk about that now. What is the importance of the home?
The home is the center. So one of the required readings is C.R. Wiley's Household and War for the Cosmos. I've got my
A
little
great
prop
book.
right here. So great. And he first came on my radar a year or two ago when he came to Grace Agenda Conference here in Moscow. And I heard part of his talk on parenting, and just everything he was saying, I was like, yes, yes, yes. Teaching consumer economics, teaching the value of the home. I was like, yes, 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 this all makes sense. And so just looking at the economy as the home being the center, the home being the start, the foundation, and then everything else coming on top of that and then growing out from it. So focusing on having that secure, that solid home life will then lead to a secure, solid, successful career, a secure, solid, successful community, building out from there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and there's
So,
so much more.
oh yeah, well, it really is. I mean, the title of the book is, is the household and the place of or the household and the war for the cosmos,
Mhm.
and it is a cosmic book as far as the scale of application. But
Yes.
those who love classical education will enjoy the fact that the book is kind of like one of the lenses that introduces a lot of the ideas is the story of the Aeneid, and that great journey and establishing. There's a lot of talk about what economy is, and I think it's
Mhm.
important for us to be very self-conscious of the fact that our household is an economy, is the original economy, and and everything else that gets built is built off of that, or ought to be. When it's not, there's a lot of harm is done.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of time when people hear the word economy, they only associate it to the businesses, the government, and they forget about the home. And even when we say home economics, we don't think about the economy behind it, the buying and the selling, the building, the foundation. And um, we're not just dealing in financial resources, we're dealing in education, we're dealing in relationships, we're dealing in people in the home. And that's something that is just especially important.
Mm-hmm. When I think about books that I've looked at, I suppose I haven't made it a field of study, but there are books out there that kind of log the life and talk about the economic life of the household, say 200 years ago or 300 years ago. And one of the things that's striking is how much women were in the community as they ran their households. And there's, I think we have this idea of if as women participate in running their household, they get more and more cloistered. Maybe talk about that.
Yeah, so one of the things that our current society is dealing with and struggling with is, I don't know what else to say except the stay at home mom syndrome,
Mm.
where you get bogged down with your one job being the home, because much of the work at home is exported. We don't have to make our own bread. We go to the store and buy it. We don't have to grow a garden. We go to the store and buy it. We don't have to educate our children at home. We can send them to school. We don't have to spend a lot of time preparing meals. You can go buy frozen chicken fingers and call it good. Nowadays, so many of those skills you can get elsewhere outside of the home. And so there can be a really big temptation for women, and something that we can struggle with as women is to just be bored with our home and
Mm.
to not put in the effort that used to be required to even have a functional home. So that's something, how society has changed. I mean, and then technology, so everything is easier, but there's also more that we can do. And one thing too, on that note, so we can talk about women in the home, and that's what we usually think of, the home economics. We usually think of the females, but it's also the man's role has changed too.
Yes.
Used to be, back before the Industrial Revolution, the husband and the wife had their usually a home business out of their home, doing something together that brought in the monetary resources for the home. And so there was a lot more cooperative work inside of the home. Now that's not so much. The husband goes out of the home, goes to his job, and then he comes back. And so that role has changed as well. And so there's more of a hands-off approach to the household from a lot of men in today's society. A lot of, I don't know what's going on. That's not my job. That's my wife's job.
Right.
And
we tell ourselves that we're being good husbands when we do that, instead of recognizing that we both are tethered in different ways to the home. I mean, that's what we're about, right? We got married so we could have this household, and really this is what we should both be revolving around. The tether for the husband may look a little different, but the idea, and of course this class is not going to crack apart and remake society, but even the idea that we drive for 45 minutes to get to the factory, spend all day there, and then drive 45 minutes back. That's artificial, and I think in the long run destructive to the economy of the household. So I think it's important that we learn to value. So however we can manage it in our lives, it may be that we have to in fact follow that model for our families to prosper, but to be aware that the ideal for both the husband and the wife is to revolve around the household, I think is important. And then learning skills to help you do that, and even just the awareness strikes me as really important. I think your class is an important thing for both boys and girls to grapple with.
Yeah, thanks.
And before we get into Wendell Berry, which is, I think, where some of the stuff that we've been talking about, Wendell Berry would kind of crack some of that open. But a practical question from Daniel Fukushan, who asks, what does a weekly class look like given its practical nature? What kind of assignments do students get?
So those are going to be twofold. Because we have the reading along with it, there will be some traditional reading reflection questions. The other part of it, the practical nature, are going to be hands-on assignments. So one of my favorite assignments that I have students do, and this will vary from student to student depending on the household and the budget and what the parents say, after we do some studying on food and balanced meals, I give the assignment where the students need to choose a vegetable, preferably something they've never had before, and they need to prepare it in a way that it's never been prepared before that they've eaten. So a couple years ago, I had never roasted cauliflower. And so I roasted cauliflower in the oven, and it was super great, and it was super easy. I had a student, again, at the university level, who had never made mashed potatoes from scratch before. She'd always just bought the box of the powder stuff that you mix up. Yeah. So she made herself some mashed potatoes before. So that's an example of just how practical and hands-on it is, where it's just challenging you to explore your skills a little bit after you've learned some of the knowledge about the behind the scenes.
Right. Okay. Well, another extremely practical question from someone who perhaps should register for your course. Sean Bonet asks, what's the science of cleaning a bathroom? we can the answer if you wish for class.
Never mix ammonia and bleach. That's all I'm going to tell you. There are science experiments that are going to happen in the bathroom.
Yeah. Okay. Sound advice. So the two books that are featured, the book we've talked about a little bit, The Household and the War for the Cosmos, Recovering a Christian Vision for the Family by C.R. Wiley. And then you also have a Wendell Berry book, Home Economics, 14 Essays. Maybe actually introduce, I know that there are many teachers and families in our group who are familiar with Wendell Berry, but there will be many who are not. So maybe you could talk a little bit about who Wendell Berry is, and then open up the book to us a bit.
Yeah, so I read Wendell Berry years ago and haven't since. So I am reconnecting with what I know about him and his essays this summer in prep for this course. So he is an American author. He's most known for his poetry. So if you recognize the name Wendell Berry, it's probably because you've seen his poetry. He also has some books that have actually been published fairly recently. 2012, he was releasing some books. And then he has this collection of essays that he calls Home Economics. And what's interesting about these essays is that each essay is not necessarily just about the home. Like we were talking about how the home is the center and then everything builds and expands from there.
Hmm.
He talks about some natural resources and how that relates to the home. He talks about his work as a farmer and having a family farm. He talks about the government and that relating to home. So it's very similar to some of the ideas that C.R. Wiley has. It's just a different take, and it's an older style of writing that does take a little more brain power to get through.
Hmm.
But it seemed like a very good pairing with C.R. Wiley. Wendell Berry is a Christian author. He considers himself a Christian pacifist from the bios that I read about him. So it's definitely a different view. And he's
Hmm.
very strong on the conservation and natural resources bit. So I think there'll be just some great discussions that will come from that one.
Absolutely. And, I love Wendell Berry on anything that touches on community, and as we've been saying, I mean, the household is where community starts. Tim Stevenson is hoping for some practical information about the class. So this class is a semester long. It's a half credit elective. It's one semester long, and it meets twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, beginning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And it looks like it's for an hour each meeting. Is that right?
50 minutes.
50 minutes, right. So meeting twice a week and $300 a semester. And you can always email me or email Kelsie
Yes.
for further answers. And I'm really glad that this course is piquing your excitement as we speak. So, talking about Wendell Berry and these essays, and you're kind of reconnecting with his essays this summer. Is there anything that has struck you or struck you freshly this summer?
Well, one that struck me, again, kind of going with the natural resources as my little person in the background. Um, Going with the natural resources and the conservation. He discusses how we use nature and getting connected to nature. And I don't agree with everything that he says, but he made a point of how we need to be better stewards of the nature around us and the natural resources around us. And then that is a Christian idea, and taking care of that will help us be more responsible in our home and valuing the resources in our home. That's not exactly what he says, but it's, what I gathered from that. And so that was something that was interesting to me, especially because I have recently been thinking about the idea of natural resources, conservation, environmentalism, like what is the Christian role in this? Where do we fall on that? And so he had the whole essay just led up to that. He was just talking about resources and natural resources and farming. And he came to that, and it was just an interesting idea that will be good to flesh out more.
Yeah, and that connecting to nature, thing, it makes me think of, for most of human history, the great struggle for the life of thought and the life of imagination has been how hard labor makes that just such an overwhelming thing, and hard labor wears us down and wears our minds down and can wear our spirits down, and so it's one of those things that philosophers have often wrestled with. There's a reason philosophers and poets have come from the aristocratic classes over the years, and that was a problem that philosophers wrestled with, and how to relieve that. And now it seems like we're on the way on the other side of things, where it's actually convenience that wears us down. We can be oblivious because everything is relatively easy. As long as I go to work regularly, I will always, in fact, have chicken tenders in the fridge. Right. And so, it's, the work that might have consumed me in cleaning the house and managing our money, all of this stuff is just so much easier. And instead of using that as a platform for creativity and beauty and bonanza, we end up, we end up with the same effect where hard labor might have broken our minds down and we would have had to resist that. Now we have to resist convenience. And I think nature, being connected to nature and stewarding nature and deciding, for example, to have a garden or to be responsible for a local park is the kind of thing that can help you build presence and awareness.
Yeah. And just build, it's a building community. It's being responsible for what is close to your home. And then just an extension of that, your yard.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have a local park, like you were saying, and just reaching out from there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your course objectives. Okay, so I'm just going to read them out for viewers. So 6 objectives. So understand the biblical view of the household and its importance in today's society. To create and implement a household budget. To create and implement a balanced weekly meal plan. To understand credit and the importance of credit in the finance world. To create a working resume. And to understand the time value of money and financial decisions. Okay, so we start pretty meta, but it gets down to brass tacks pretty fast. So we've talked a little bit about the importance of the household in today's society. So let's go through these brass tacks ones a little more concretely. Why is it important? And I know that there's kind of a facile answer right at hand, but why is it important to have a household budget?
If you don't have money, you can't have a household.
Okay.
There you go.
Boom.
And it's our responsibility to be wise with what we have and not live beyond our means.
Yeah. Okay. So that to me makes easy sense, right?
Yeah.
But then a weekly meal plan. So my wife has a weekly meal plan that she tries to stick to, that I am constantly disrupting for one reason or another, whether because I'm eating all the ingredients she gets, or because I decide to cook one night and use all the ingredients she would have used. There is a philosophical gap between the two of us and the importance of a weekly meal plan. So I don't want to, bear my marital troubles to you necessarily, but maybe try to work on a non-believer with the whole meal plan thing. Yeah.
So that goes hand in hand with the budget. So you have, a set up dollar amount that you are assigned to food, and you have to purchase enough food to make for the set amount of time. Let's just go say a week. And so it's very important to have planned what you are going to eat so that you know what to purchase so you can stay on budget. It also goes with just being responsible for our bodies. That's the balanced meal plan, and making sure that you are not eating junk food all the time, because that's not being responsible. And we're called to be responsible and respectful of the bodies that God's given us. So that goes hand in hand. The meal planning helps you stay on budget and also create those balanced meals with all the nutrients that your body needs.
Yeah. Well, so often when we eat junk food at home, that has to do directly with the fact that you open the fridge and nothing comes to mind, right? Yep. But, if you have a plan, then something is to mind.
Yep. And then at least, if you go off plan, that you're going off plan, and you can't pull I didn't know because I didn't have a plan. You're like, what you're doing if you have a plan and you're not following it.
Right. Now, this one could be a little more controversial, given that there are, different ways for Christians to think about the use of credit. But how do you teach on understanding credit and its importance?
Yeah. So just defining the terms, what it is in today's society and financial world, and whether or not you believe that taking on certain types of debt is the wise Christian thing to do or not. You can still understand what credit is and its role in today's society, and you can also understand how to improve your credit score, whether or not you are making use of those financial tools. You can still understand the term. So we're going to go into defining the terms, what it is, how you use it wisely, and if it's a decision that you are choosing to take on different types of debt as a tool. And so we talk a little bit about the dangers of going into debt, but also the benefits of using the credit tools that are available.
And finally, creating a resume. So,
Mm,
this is something that I've seen a lot of resumes cross my desk over the
I
years,
bet.
and well, it's an adulting skill, isn't it? It's not. It's not necessarily. There's not always a lot of consistency or even wisdom in how people who are adulting, like they're in the middle of it, and then how they write their resumes. So, yeah, talk about the importance of that.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, you can't have a household if you don't have financial income of some kind. So creating that resume to get that job, whatever it might be, is very important. It's putting yourself on paper. So we learn what makes a good resume. I give them lists of the action words that you want to use, the conciseness, the layout, how to personalize it without making it crazy. And then also because of the age group, so this class is geared towards 9th through 12th graders, 11th and 12th specifically because they're going to be into the real world sooner.
Right.
But looking at your existing experience and figuring out how to put that on a resume. So maybe you've never had a real job before, but maybe you have diligently mowed your family's lawn for the last 3 years. Well, how can we express that on a resume? How can we take that skill and put it on a resume? Maybe you have babysat your younger siblings. So how can we turn that into a job that would be appropriate on the resume? Maybe you worked in a group setting on a school project. What
Yep.
did you learn from that we can put on a resume, so that you have something to work with, just going into college, and then you have something you could build on as the years go by.
Yeah. Actually, we had an experience recently where my daughter got her first official job. She was going into her senior year in high school, and we knew the owner of the business, so we were talking to her, and she said, "Well, here's how you're going to apply. Fill out, send me a resume." And even though she had no experience, she specifically said, "I want to know all about your babysitting and any other work
Mhm.
you might have done." Employers want that kind of thing, particularly when you're young, right? When you're
Yeah.
a 35-year-old accountant, obviously you're not going to be recounting your babysitting
Yes.
history. But, well, we've really appreciated everyone's comments and questions as we've gone along. So it's kind of your last chance to get anything in. If you have any questions for Kelsie, Kelsie, let's close with this whimsical question. I wonder, as you began adulting, was there a particular tip or way of doing things? About anything, laundry, budgeting, anything that really struck you or turned out to be kind of a revelation for you?
Off the top of my head, this is my favorite laundry hack because I think it's bizarre. So,
Okay.
when you get a stain on something and you're not supposed to put hot water on it, you like
Hmm.
wash it in cold water and, don't dry it and avoid heat like crazy. Okay. Berry stains. If you pour boiling water over a berry stain, it comes out.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. This is deep knowledge. I love it. Cool. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's been viewing, but really appreciate this conversation. And I'm looking forward to this class this fall.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, let's stay on the line as we say goodbye to everyone and we can chat a little afterwards. So long,
Sounds good.
everybody.